Hey all, Pixel here in Pubble Garage, and I'm back on the front end work for the van. So, things haven't moved since the end of the last video. I am better. It's about 2 months later, I want to say, something like that. I did some other stuff. You've seen other videos, but that was all me doing lightweight stuff. Now I'm back on the heavy duty stuff. So, a few minor things have happened in the interim, so let me catch you up. That's all completely painted, ready to go. It needs no additional work. A friend of mine gave me an old heavy-duty server rack, the base of which is now that little cart that it's on. Still working my way through hardware in the vibrator tumbler, but I forgot about it, honestly, so I haven't gotten that much done. But some of it's been done and painted. Everything that's been done and painted is in bags, waiting to be assembled, so that I didn't fuck it up again. I also found a great technique for getting the bushings out, which I experimented with on one of these. I will link to the video in the description, but this is a so much better technique than anything else I've seen anywhere else. It makes so much more sense, it's so much easier, and it requires way less tools. So I recommend, I'm going to show you very briefly, but I recommend you watch that video so you can also see how it's done, so you can do that on your van. Ignore the mess, it's been a thing. So this has these two bushings that need to be pushed out, as I explained in the previous video. The techniques that a lot of places just have to get them out don't work easily on a van because this shaft is the same diameter as the bushing. And if you use the shaft itself to push the bushing out, like I mistakenly was talking about in the other video, the shaft is two pieces. There's an inner part and this outer part separated by rubber. You can, because you're using this part to push on the bushing, but you're pushing on the inner part, you can tear that rubber and you can F up this shaft. And they're also not available new the same way that the control arms themselves aren't. So this guy's technique was to instead hammer on a slot, on one straight thing on this bushing to deform the case of the bushing until it will come out. I did that on this and it works. It is a pain in the butt, I will say that, but it is a very effective technique. What you're basically doing is by hammering in one place, you're taking that circle, and because it's being pushed in here, the whole thing is deforming this way because there's only so much material, and that makes it just smaller enough that eventually you can get it loose. So this is one of my bushings, and then I did a little bit of hammering on the other side just to break this lip free. And then this is the other one that I did basically the same thing. Once this seemed like it was free a little bit, I could get a, can't see it very well, but this ring here is actually the bushing. It's not part of the control. Let me try it on the sunny side. It's not easy to see, but you've got the washer, you've got the rubber of the bushing, and then this metal sort of ring here is the end of the bushing. Once you've deformed this enough, you can kind of move it just enough to get something in there to get a little bit of space. Once you've gotten a little bit of space, you can get something bigger in there that you can pry on and you can pop the bushing out. Obviously with this stuff removed. And then once one bushing's out, you can move this whole thing aside. Like I would aim for this one first. You can move this whole thing aside, and that'll allow you to have an additional ability to bash that bushing out. And when they come out, bushings are obviously trash, but you are left with this. This has, in case it's not obvious, there is a washer, there's a metal bushing, there's this main metal rod, and then on this side there's another washer, bushing, washer. If these bushings are shot, there is no aftermarket replacement for it. Your best bet is if this part of your, you'll see in the guy's video, if this part of your bushing's in decent shape, you can cut it off and basically make it one, either this bushing or which one of these is the bushing. I don't think this whole thing is, oh, I guess this whole thing is, you can basically make that into that or do the same thing by getting another bush. But yeah, you kind of have to fabricate this and this if yours are all trashed. I'm fortunate that mine are in perfectly fine shape. But I need to do this same thing to that one. I need to do it to the two smaller ones so I can get everything apart, and then I need to run these through the parts washer to get the grease off of them, and then the next step is derusting so I can paint. So I'm going to set you up on time lapse, and hopefully I can just rip the 3 remaining ones apart fairly quickly and move on to the next stage. Sorry for the tumbler noise, but I found something weird. I got the other one out, it was like the other, but this bushing is like straight outwards, so it can't just be pushed through the normal way. None of the other ones are like that. I actually went back and checked, and they're all just smooth all the way around. So I don't know why this one bushing is like that, but I think what I'm going to have to do is basically come in with a cutting or grinding disc and just take off this bit here and this bit here and it sticks up. This one's going to be a bigger problem because it's both up in the sort of area protected by this, and it's deeper. The bushing's not as far in there. And even with that, I think some of the stuff, like the metal that's in this ring, has been pushed outward. The good thing is this is the second one, so I do have better access to bash up, so I can bend this entire lip inwards enough to give me that clearance to get the thing out. If it really comes down to it, I can burn this bushing out, get the centerpiece out, and then just collapse this entire thing even further because it won't have anything mass inside to sort of keep its shape. But that's annoying as hell. Alright, well that's done. Those are all, have the shafts knocked out of them. The smaller ones, I ended up finding it easier to put multiple dents in multiple places, and then basically put the chisel on this lip and just force it out, and it would kind of like walk out. So those are all out. They've all been scrubbed to get the big chunks of loose grease off. There's still probably some really dry chunks of grease on them right now, but I no longer have to worry about sticking my finger into a chunk of grease and getting my hand all gross, which is a relief because that was always nasty. So I think I'm done for now because that was brutally hard on my hands, including when I was trying to get one of those cross shafts out, I stuck a screwdriver in it and put the gun on the bolt, and the screwdriver was doing this so violently that I actually gave myself a blister and bruised the tips of 2 of my fingers. So this project's been hard on me. But those are going to dry, and the next day I have to work on them. It's going to be rust removal on them, the springs, the cross shafts, everything. Get everything ready for painting so that it can all get assembled. But that's a huge step forward because there's no more major disassembly left. It's all now just cleaning up, derusting, and painting so I can reassemble. So, milestone reached. Alright, I didn't end up filming today because I just wanted to get stuff done, but man did I. All of this has been sandblasted. The 4 control arms, the 2 springs, all 4 cross shafts, all of the washers and nuts and everything that I hadn't already done and painted. As you can see, I did not try to get everything off because it's just a fool's errand on something like this. It's just not worth the effort. What I did was blasted every single part of this to knock everything that could possibly be loose off. The only places I'm going to have to go back in and do some more is basically in the spring pocket area on both. The rest there's just chunky enough that even the sandblaster wasn't shifting it. So everything else is smoothed. You know, all the flaky rust is all gone. There are areas that, there are areas that have this thick, like, undercoat. It's like undercoat, except it's hard. I don't even know what it is. So I'm who knows, well, whatever. But that stuff would not be shifted either. But my theory is if I can't get that off of the sandblaster, it's on there damn good and solid and I can paint right over it. So for right now, I'm gonna clean all this up, go inside and clean myself. I'm like 5% grit by volume at the moment. But tomorrow I'll do that last little bit, clean all this up to get the sandblasting residue off of it, and then I can paint on all of these. This just saved me so much time. I was going to do this with grinding, and then I was like, wait a minute, I own a sandblaster. What the hell am I doing? This saved me so much time. This took me like, I don't know, hour, maybe 2, but it was well worth it because everything, like, yeah, like just the tumbler was barely touching the rust on these. They were coming out still somewhat gritty, or still somewhat rough, and now they're all like, you know, this is like no effort put in. If I'd wanted to, these could all be perfect. But yeah, way better result, way less effort. I really should be remembering this thing and using it more often. The main reason I tend to shy away from it is just the blast radius of mess that it produces. But anyway, that's it for today. I'll catch up with you tomorrow. All right, another day. I went and cleaned these, did that last little bit of grinding I talked about, and sprayed them with phosphoric acid and then rubbed off most of it, like, you know, so the surface is as close to the surface is just damp as I could to allow that to treat the rust without leaving too much residue. It did leave some residue in some areas, so these have now been washed again. So the next step is that these are going to get painted with Master Series, same with the springs. Actually, no, I'm not going to paint the springs with Master Series because it's going to flake off on those anyway. So those are just going to get painted with spray paint. Parts of the cross shafts will get painted, like the center parts, and the parts the bushings right on are going to get polished with sandpaper. Just, I want to get rid of that textured finish that the sandblasting leaves, just so it's not someplace for moisture to sit and get started on rust. All of this hardware is just going to get spray painted because Master Series getting in the threads would be a problem. Another day, more paint. All of this has gotten its first coat of Rust-Oleum. The little stuff in the springs just got sprayed with Rust-Oleum. All the big stuff's got brush-on Rust-Oleum first coat, including those. I realized there was no point in cleaning the Master Series off the shaft part until I was done with the other paint, because I was going to get that on it too. So everything's got a one coat. The big stuff that got brush on, once that's done, I'm going to take a look at it and decide whether it's going to get another brushed on coat or just a spray coat to just hit the places where like it's a little thin or whatever. But the next real big step is reassembly. All right, everything's gotten a second coat of Rust-Oleum. I used spray paint this time, so that's all set. So the next step is I also reassembled these with the original rubbers because those were fine. For the lowers, this big thick packet faces towards the front. For the uppers, the one washer that's on there faces towards the back. I just double checked on my van, and that's how they're set up. So I also went and labeled all of these so I would know which was which. So I put them together correctly. Again, use my van as a reference point. So the next thing I need to do is use my little flap disc thing there to clean the paint out of each of these. I'm going to be gentle about it because I don't want to risk taking any metal out and making it at all loose there. But I do need to get the paint out so that the bushings will fit in. And then the next step after that will be to start pressing the bushings in, which I think I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I don't think I have enough time today. All right, I've got these all cleaned up, and I was doing the first assembly here. The upper ones, you can just kind of pull on with their own hardware. I flipped this washer, is supposed to be the other way. It's slightly cupped. I don't know how much the camera will pick that up. And it's supposed to be this way on the bushing. But if you turn it this way, it gets you a couple of extra threads. Similarly, if you put the nut that's supposed to be this way on this way, you get a little extra threads. And that's enough to get enough engagement on both sides to start pulling this together. And once you've got it in a bit, and you've taken up some of that space, you can take that all off and flip it around the right way and finish assembling it. I did discover a problem though, which is that this bushing kit from Moog only has 2 bushings, which the lower bushing kit has all 4. So I didn't realize that. So I have my ball joints and I have my other ball joints, but I don't have enough bushings to complete it. So I'm going to have to order another bushing kit. I might get lucky and I might be able to get it through Napa, pay a little extra, but get it sooner. But yeah, these, I just need to pull this one on and then I need to work. These are a little more complicated and I'll get to those when I get to those, but I think I might be able to get this one done today. All right, I screwed up. I was just, tightening the 2 ends to pull this together. And this one is now, I don't know how well, see that gap? That should be tight up against there. So I've kind of pulled the whole thing in instead of just pulling the bushings into it. So that was a screw up on my part. So now I've got to get these bushings back out or pull that gap open, one or the other, because right now it's not sealing. And actually I've loosened this one and taken it off because this had actually pulled even tighter before. There's a little, I doubt the camera will show it, but there's a little ridge on this that's supposed to be sitting against this. And it's not there and it's not there. So that was a screw up. I can, if I take this apart, if I can get one of these out, I can press one in the correct way. And then what I should have done and what I'm going to do is make a spacer that's the correct distance out of a piece of like angle iron or something like that and fit it in there so that when I pull it all together, it can't, these can't move relative to each other. So the only thing that can happen is that the bushings can move in. So yeah, yeah, this was my screw up. I shouldn't have done this. I didn't think it through. That one I knew I needed. So the other one I knew I needed to make spacers for. Like I've test fitted that and they'll go in almost all the way, but then they stop at the last little step that's supposed to be like that. So they have to be forced in, but I knew this one needed spacers. Why I thought the other one didn't, just because it had a single flange on either side, I don't know. But either way, I'm done for today because that's a sign that I shouldn't be working. I need to order those other bushings from wherever, and then I will pick this up another day. All right, here's my solution for keeping this from crushing inwards. This is just a really thick angle iron. I got 2 pieces of it strapped around this. I got 1 piece here and 1 piece here. The reason I have 1 piece here is because basically where this other one would be, it's reinforced because the metal comes all the way around to here. So it seemed unnecessary to put one there since that side's going to be basically kept in place. And this should keep the whole thing from crushing in. Once I'm done doing both of these, I'm going to cut these 2 down to fit inside this gap here. And the one that's too small, I'm going to figure out some way to... And basically what I realized is that it's not that the whole thing's crushed in, the bottom is kicked in because that's what can flex. So I should be able to maybe put it in on the other side and then hammer it around and that'll push it out, or directly hammer that. We're going to worry about that later. But this should allow me to just cinch this in without crushing the arm itself. These bushings fit in loosely right now, but they have a step that fits into here, and the whole bushing gets a little bit wider past the very end, which will fit tightly into this one. So once these are pulled in so that they're tight up against here, they shouldn't have that play in them anymore. So I'm going to give it a go and then report back. All right, so this is going, but not well. I'm having a hell of a time. On both of them, I took this out, slid it out one end, and used the ball joint press to press one bushing in. So the front bushing on both of them is pressed in. The problem is I cannot get the back one to press in for anything. I made these to brace it. I've got the ones, actually they're over here, raise it because that one's not going to go much of anywhere. And I cannot get this to pull in. I'll hit a point where both bolts are tight, but it's not pulled in, and I'm not sure what's going on. I don't think I've bottomed out the threads, especially on that side, because I've got the washer the way it's supposed to be on this side domed out. I've got the washer domed in over here because I was wondering if maybe the rubber was being pulled in and crimping against there, but I don't think that's happening. But I just get to a point where they're both stopped and it won't go in any further, and I don't know if it's because I'm trying to push the bushing in and it won't, or if I somehow bottomed out the threads, or if there's something else going on. So I'm very confused. I have beat the hell out of these nuts trying to get it to work. So I feel like I'm missing something here. So I think I'm going to call it for the night and do a little bit more research and come out here and try it again. Also, in all of this attempts to do this, I've scratched the hell out of all my paint, so I'm a little frustrated with that too. But I'm chipping away, just not anywhere near fast enough. I think I'm going to do the same thing on the front ones, where I'm going to press one of the bushings in and then put the rod in, and then I only have to get the other bushing crimped in by tightening everything down. I think that'll make my life easier there. These don't go all the way in, like they don't bottom out. It seems like, but I'm not entirely sure. It's very confusing. One of the places with these describes there as being a front and a rear bushing, but I can find no difference between them, and other places don't mention it at all, so I have no idea what's going on there. So I'm just gonna, I think I'm gonna be done for tonight. There's a reason I've been putting this job off for a while. It's because, can you imagine if I had to do this with the van torn apart? How much this would have sucked? It's bad enough this way. So yeah, I'll pick this up the next day and work. All right, I'm back at it, and I figured out something that's probably affecting a bunch of this. So what I've been using, this big honkin' set I bought to do this exact job on my 64 Chevy pickup years ago. I was using this socket on a reducer so I could put it on the gun. This is the correct one. It's a 1 1/18. But what I realized, if I can get this to balance, here's the bolt. You can see what a ridiculous amount of play that has in there. So I've been beating the hell out of these, and that looseness, this joint and this joint, means I'm losing a bunch of my torque to just waste. So unfortunately, the only way I could get the socket in the smaller drive size and better quality that fits better is to buy an entire set. So that kind of sucks, but now you can see if I put it in this one, there's virtually no wobble. Also, this has got the hollowed out corner thing where it grabs deeper in the nut, so it doesn't beat the hell out of the corners as much as this style does. So what I'm hoping, if I'm really, really lucky, I can just use this socket, get way more torque, be able to crank that down and get the last one in. If not, I need to start looking into yet more things. It wasn't the magic bullet because it still wouldn't go on. I saw a thing online, and I'm going to post the video in the description because it's a way better way to do this than what I've been fighting with, but I found a thing on how to put this same bushings into a C10. It's not exactly the same because this is different, but functionally it looks like it would mostly work. And they used exhaust tube, I think, to basically, they took exhaust tube, cut it to the right length, slid it down so they had two halves, and they would wrap the two halves around this to make a support there. They'd wrap two halves in here to make a support here, same here, and then they'd cut a thin strip of it to sit here so that this was pressing on there and was not pushing on the rubber bushing. Unfortunately, I don't have any, and I can't pull this out to go try and find some that fits, but I don't want to, oh Jesus Christ, I'm tired, and I don't want to go take another trip right now. So what I'm going to try and do instead, yeah, see, because the problem that I'm realizing, the problem there is I'm applying pressure whichever way I push this. I'm pushing on the rubber, which is then sort of transferring into there. I'm losing again a bunch of force. So I need to figure out a way either the right way, the way they did it, or some other way to get the force transferred from this directly to the edge of this, because that will hopefully then allow me to apply direct pressure instead of sort of vague, please could you move, that I've been doing right now. I came up with, this is some like smaller stuff, it's like 1 3/4 or something, it's what I had. I cut 2 slices out of it, slit those, and they're basically nested into each other. Like one's on the outside over here, one's on the outside over here, in hopes that that'll help keep them together. And then I've got a zip tie I'm going to put around them like that, and then that should allow me to put the washer on and apply direct force to the bushing, which will hopefully push this bushing in and let me be done with this. So that did work. The thing is now seated good enough. It's not 100%, like there's a tiny gap, but it's good enough for me. The interesting thing is the force involved took this from a dished washer like this to a inverted one. It's like, and you can kind of see it how faces the other way. So I'm going to use this one to push that one in too, and then I will steal a washer off the cross member I'm replacing. But that finally got it in. So that was my problem all along. That's why these bushings wouldn't go in. It wasn't that I didn't have enough force. It was that the force was being applied to the rubber, which was just suggesting that the bushing move in rather than directly to the bushing itself. So this solved that problem. So I'm gonna cut all this off, transfer it all over to that one, push that second bushing in, and then I'm gonna have to go through and touch up the paint on these because they got scratched up a bunch with all of the flipping them over and fighting with them and whatnot. And then I will start in on those, having learned some lessons. These are going to be a little bit more interesting because there isn't as... No, I guess I can do that. I guess I can do that there. All right, success! Second bushing is in the second control arm. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to put a link to a video that does a better job of explaining a better technique for this, but I used a variant on it. And this is the vitally important part. I mean, one, having a socket that actually fits so I'm not losing a bunch of power, but having a spacer in here so that the force being applied is being transferred directly to the bushing rather than into the rubber. That's 99% of it right there. So again, I'm gonna touch these up, and then I'm going in for dinner, and then the next step is going to be put the ball joints in, and then these two will be done and ready to go on the cross member. All right, I just assembled one of the upper ones. This is not the one that I tried before that got bent in a little. That's this one. I cut this bar down to 9.5, which just fits in there. This one got put on with the tool like I did with the others, and in this case this piece fits over the bushing once that starts to compress. Like, it doesn't fit over when you just put it there, but once you start to compress it, it'll shove it down over the bushing, hit this flange, and push it in. This one fits over the bushing the other direction. That's why I pulled this one together. Then I installed this. These are the same little cut pieces. So the other one just twisted more into each other to be smaller, and then just, tightened down, and it's pulled that one in. So this one is done. What I'm going to do with that one, because it's bent inwards over here from my previous attempts, is I'm going to try and just hammer this in, start somewhere where it's wider and hammer it in and then around to push this out. Hopefully that will work. And then if I can do that to get it in, which I think I will, that'll let me then put the two bushings in. Well, I got to put this bushing in and then do the hammering. But anyway, that'll let me put the bushings in, and then that part of this will be done. I'm going to have to get the right pieces lined up to push this bushing in. But once I did, it just went in. And then the bushing on this side, same thing. Once I had this, once I had those spacers, it's just a matter of tightening it down, and it just worked. So yeah, do it the right way. Don't try and cheat it. It's not worth it, because the people telling you to do it the right way are no, because they've done it the wrong way. So, oh yeah, and this screwdriver is through one of the holes to just keep it from rotating. Don't try and hold it yourself. Don't try and do this. It's not going to work. Just take a big screwdriver, jam it through, let it push up against the control arm as you tighten. Done. All right, and that's that one assembled. This turned into a bit of a faff because the bushings were in enough, I couldn't get them back out again, so I couldn't do it properly by putting one in and then putting the other one in. So I had to just tighten from both sides and draw the whole thing together, which didn't work super well. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd recommend putting one in and then you just have to draw the second one in. Yeah, now just like the other one, I'm going to touch up where I scratched the hell out of the paint. This one, these definitely took the worst of it. But now all 4 bushing sets are in. Now it's just the ball joints, and then I'm done. These are easy. You just have to remember, there's just 4 bolts. You just have to remember to Loctite them in. That's all. And then those are pushed in using the kit, which shouldn't be a problem at all. I've already test fit them, and the holes are nice and tight. Sometimes people will have the problem where by the time they get the old ball joint out, especially if that ball joint was completely shot, the hole is actually not the right size anymore. And then what you end up having to do is feed the ball joint in and then tack weld it to the arm, because it can't rotate in the arm or move up and down, or it doesn't work properly. Fortunately, I don't think I'm going to run into that problem. So yeah, I'm going to get the ball joints in, and then these will be done. Effing finally. All right, I have put these on the cross member. This is just, this is from painting the bumper on the Cube. It's covered in orange dust. But I basically wanted to test fit it, just to make sure somehow I hadn't screwed something up. Everything's fine. These are bolted in. For anybody doing this, the front and rear U-bolts are different lengths. It's not obvious when it's off, but it's real obvious when you're trying to fit them. So just be aware of that. Upper ones are in. I don't have any of the shims in, so there's just a huge amount of extra space there. And right now they're just zip tied to each other, so the lower one stays up. It's probably not going to get installed this way because it's bloody heavy, but I just wanted to double check everything. Plus I can store it this way and have it take up less space. But yeah, I'm super happy. That's exactly what I wanted to be able to do. I got a cross member. I got my control arms completely rebuilt. The springs are over here and all painted. Now, the steering on my van was replaced, I think last year, recently. So I don't need to replace tie rods or any of that stuff. That's all going to stay. I have lowering spindles for the front that are for a C10 pickup truck, but interchange. I've double checked all of the ball joints and tie rods fit. But I've realized mine have a ABS sensor in them, and I don't think this has the fitting for that. So I may not be able to use these. I may be stuck with my spindles because of that. We'll find out. Brakes were recently redone on my van. All of that's going to get just transferred over. I'm just going to check the wheel seals and stuff like that, make sure it's all fine. What else? Motor mounts on the motor standoffs are going to stay the same, obviously, because the motor's staying the same. I did screw up. I was cleaning up the garage and decided, fucking, I'm going to get rid of a bunch of shit that's in the way. And I got rid of the whole spindle assembly from this cross member on both sides, which is fine. But I also got rid of the motor mount towers, which I realized I should have saved, because when I do a V8 conversion on this, I need V8 motor mount towers. So that was a dumb thing for me to have done, but it's too late. Oh well. So this is now basic, aside from little stuff, this is as done as it can be until I'm ready to put it in the van. So hopefully that'll happen soon, but if it doesn't, I can tuck this out of the way, and this project is out of the way. I can clean up this whole area. sway bar. I have the sway bar off the other van. I have my sway bar. I'm probably just going to sand down and repaint the sway bar off the other van and have that done as well too. But that's boring. It's the same thing I did with everything else, just removing the rust and painting it, so I'm not going to worry about that. I am going to buy new hardware for all the sway bar mounts when I do them, just because those are just normal nuts and bolts. I can easily buy some grade 8s, replace them, and know that they're perfect. The only reason that the hardware got reused that did here is because it's stuff that I can't easily get replacements for. It's all very specialized hardware. So that's it. I'm done with this phase, and we'll pick it up when we're doing install. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.